Good. All right. I'm Craig Earls. Thanks for having me here. It's really hard to follow Daniel. I don't have a PowerPoint or anything like that, but I did want to talk to you guys about the tech industry. I've been a lifelong geek for a long time. Just a little bit about myself. I'm born and raised here in Tazewell County. I went to Tazewell High School. Don't hold that against me. Graduated there in '99. And I've been really in technology for a long time, and really since 14 I wanted a computer repair manual for Christmas. So I asked my dad, and he picked it up for me, and I've been studying computers, and I got my A+ certification, which is like computer repair certification, when I was 15, and didn't own a computer. We didn't have enough money at the time, so I had a great friend that lived beside of me that he had a computer, and I was able to learn how to fix computers and program by 16 on his computer. And at that time, I bought my own computer. So, so that for me has been awesome. I originally wanted to go to school to be a pharmacist, but I had two uncles that really were very interested in computers, and they kind of talked like megahertz and all this other stuff. And I said, man, what are they? It was a different language. I just didn't understand it. So being kind of the annoying, kid at 14, ask a bunch of questions, and I probably annoyed them to death, but they set me on a path to technology at that point. And really through my career, I've had just weird opportunities come up, and it's all been because of Tazewell County, Southwest Virginia Community College, and other programs. I've been kind of the guinea pig through a lot of programs that have came through Tazewell County area, and they've all been awesome. My first one I went through was Cisco Networking Academy, which is computer network engineering, and that's basically programming. This is like year 2000, so a lot of the internet's just starting to really take off, and it's programming devices on the internet and being able to route traffic and things like that. So I've learned a ton about that, and at that time the .com boom busted pretty much. And those jobs that were paying 100, 150,000 a year, you could still get them, but you'd really have to go to Raleigh or something like that. So wasn't quite the path I wanted to take. So went to Southwest Community College, and I finished my degree there in computer internet working technology and software development through some programs that they had over there. And I worked at the college, and then I worked at AT&T doing some tech stuff, and I did training and things like that, but it still really wasn't my calling. I enjoyed training and stuff like that, but at that time it was 2006, 2007, and CGI came to Lebanon, which they're a technology provider with the third largest IT company in the world, and they're building a software development center of excellence in Lebanon, out in the middle of nowhere. And so I was one of the early founding members there at CGI early on, and through my education through Southwest Virginia Community College, I was able to get employment there, and I have been working in software development. And since 2007, I'm an enterprise architect. I design software. I work with clients to understand what they need and what they're paying us a lot of money to do. So I help bridge the gap between what they're paying for, and also on the boring side of my job, which is managing budgets and managing the people and that kind of stuff. But at heart, I design user interfaces. So if you see an app that's on your phone, or if you see complex applications, somebody has to design how you use that system. What happens when you put something into a form and you hit submit? What does the system do with that information? What processes are kicked off? What automation is there? Is there artificial intelligence in the back end that we have to do different things on? So so that's kind of what I do. It's my day job. And digital transformation is a key part of any business right now. 2007 versus right now is completely different. If you're starting a business today, technology has to be one of the cornerstones in your business. You have to understand, is it social media? It's very important to get your business out there. It's important to have a great website. It's great to have your own knowledge and use of tools like Microsoft Office, which you would think that most people do, but sometimes they need some refresher courses on. So if you're starting a business, I want to make sure everybody listening to make sure that digital side is taken care of, because it's an enabler for your business to grow. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today is really my hobby, which is cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. You may have heard. So anybody heard of Bitcoin? It's this magic internet money that everybody keeps talking about. So I wanted to talk a little bit about cryptocurrency, and it's a little bit of a crawl, walk, run type conversation once we get into it a little bit. And cryptocurrencies are, in my opinion, not really a currency at all. They're really a store of value. They're an asset, and that's what the IRS says. So I'll go with that. They got to get their share. They have to get their share. But Bitcoin is a store of value, really more than a currency. So like, for example, if I take $100 bill and I give it to Blake, say, Blake, put that in Wells Fargo. He say, all right, here's your account. It's got $100 in it. He can lend $90 of that out based on the fractional reserve system of the banks. So that's how banks operate, right? They take your money, they lend it out, they make a return on it, and there you go. So that's just kind of how that works. Back in 2008, does anybody remember that year? What happened? A big financial issue with Lehman Brothers and all kinds of financial issues in the banking industry. Well, there was a guy, maybe a girl, or maybe a group that wrote a white paper, and his name is Satoshi Nakamoto, and it's the Bitcoin white paper on where the genesis of Bitcoin has come from. And this is designed so that two people can transact with each other without a third party, aka a bank. Sorry, Blake, don't need Wells Fargo anymore. For lots of reasons. Censorship, most recently in Ukraine, for example, folks there that have Bitcoin, as long as they know their 24-word phrase to their wallet, they can walk across the border with their assets, download the wallet, and their money's there. So there's lots of practical applications for Bitcoin and innovation in cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. And I want to just kind of touch a little bit about, some people are skeptical of Bitcoin. It's like this magic internet money and people don't understand it. And that's understandable. It is complicated. When you really start kind of getting into the weeds, it's even more, complicated. But, if you think about it from like a banking perspective, if I go to Walmart and I pick up a Pepsi and I go ring it up, okay, I'm going to go and I scan it, and then I'm ready to pay. I put my debit card in there. What's the first thing it does? It reads my chip right on my card. It's got to communicate with Wells Fargo. It says, hey, does Craig really have an account? Is he good? Yeah, he's good. He's good for the money. There's no issues here. Okay, I'm Walmart, hold the money. Okay, we complete the transaction. I put my PIN in, and at night, all of these transactions are settled on the financial networks in the US. It's a very complex banking system. CGI works on most of these systems. We've got a lot of clients in the banking industry. But these transactions are settled. It's an accounting process, right? It's debited for me and it's deposited into Walmart's account. Well, all that happens there is, the banks have all these networks that have to settle all these transactions at night. And it's even worse if you're trying to send money overseas. So if you're trying to send money to Hong Kong, or for example, you have to send it by wire, and sometimes it don't always work, and you have to do a wire trace on it and all kinds of stuff. And so third world countries use Bitcoin and other types of cryptocurrencies to transact worldwide within seconds. If they have family like in El Salvador, who just recently authorized Bitcoin to be their recognized currency, if somebody's in, let's say, England, in a punch of a button in about 10 minutes, within 10 minutes, that money can be sitting in their wallet. So two people transacting without a bank is basically kind of what it is. Now, how does that work? With Bitcoin, all it is an accounting ledger. Cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is just an accounting ledger that's public. So if I know your wallet and I know your wallet, I can look at it and I can see every transaction coming and going. So it's immutable, which means that you can't change it. So if I send it to you and I really meant to send it to you, And if you're not nice and send it back, you just got yourself some Bitcoin. There's not anything. There's not a Bitcoin hotline, that I can call customer service and say, hey, oops, I sent it to Ricky by accident. Can you send it back? Don't work like that. So you got to be kind of careful, things like that. But it's censorship resistant and there's no single point of failure. That's the other strength of Bitcoin. And the reason that there's strength is because of mechanisms that is my hobby, which is cryptocurrency mining. And that's something that I have been doing for quite a ways back. I originally got interested in it back in 2014. And of course, life things happen and I kind of put it down. Then I picked it back up a few years ago. But Bitcoin works off of something called proof of work. And basically what it is, each block in a blockchain, you can kind of think of as a train, okay? You have a train car and people's trying to get onto the train car, okay? So if I pay more to get on the train car, I get to the top of the list to get into the train car, okay? Does that make sense? So the people who pay to play, basically, if you pay more, you get your transaction in. So every 10 minutes, all these accounting transactions are bundled up into a block, and then they are written to the blockchain as an accounting ledger to say, I paid him, I paid you, he paid him. All this stuff around the world gets batched up every 10 minutes, and it gets put onto the blockchain. And how that happens is because of cryptocurrency miners, and it's pieces of hardware that are specifically made for the Bitcoin network that run these complex math problems. And what happens is the Bitcoin network packages all this up, all the transactions, and it sends out a math problem. Okay. That math problem, all the miners across the world have that same problem. And whoever solves the problem first gets the right to put those accounting details onto the blockchain network for Bitcoin. As a reward, you're given Bitcoin for securing the network. So you're providing hardware to secure the network. And as a result, that's where new Bitcoins are generated and you get the Bitcoin. And there's other networks that I have mining operations in, Ethereum, Flux. I do quite a bit of different types of mining, but Bitcoin's the most, probably the famous. So the hardware that you're using is solving these problems, and the Bitcoin network has a problem on its hands. If a ton of Bitcoin miners come online, the difficulty of the problem will be solved pretty quick because there's so many trying to solve this same problem. So the Bitcoin network's smart. In 2008 in the white paper, Satoshi wrote that the blocks are to be written every 10 minutes, and every 124 blocks, the system looks at it and says, ooh, they're solving it too quick. I got to up the difficulty of the problem. So as that happens, it equals out so that it's around 10 minutes for each block. So every 10 minutes, a new block is written, which shows all the transactions that happened. And at the end of the day, you're providing security to the Bitcoin network, and you're basically converting power into coins because they take an enormous amount of power. So for example, one mining container eats about 1.3 million watts of power. That's a lot. That's a whole lot. Just to put that in perspective, it would be like a power bill of like $75,000 to $100,000 a month. Yeah, it's not cheap. But but there are, for example, huge mining farms, and I've been looking at one, probably the biggest one that I know of is in Rockdale, Texas. It's right outside of Austin, and it uses 700 megawatts of power. And to put that in perspective, that's more than New York City and Dallas combined in one 100 site location. It's pretty crazy. Now, the thing about mining, and I always look at it, I look at different things. I've done real estate, I've done lots of different things. I look at kind of like what Paul and some of the other guys are saying is, what are the opportunities for me to make passive income? I want cash flow. I want cash flow from properties. I want cash flow from Bitcoin. I want cash flow from Ethereum. I want cash flow from my job, hopefully, or, try to make sure you got more cash flow coming in than going out, typical stuff. But, it's a opportunity for investment and other areas that you can kind of keep your mind open to. Some people with cryptocurrency, they just buy the coin, and there's nothing wrong with that. People may buy Bitcoin, wait for it to go up, or vice versa, buy it on the dip or sell it when it goes up. But cryptocurrencies are here to stay. They're gaining in popularity, and there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with it. Now, there's one other cool part about Bitcoin, and like I said, with Bitcoin, the transactions settle at about every 10 minutes. Okay, well, if you really want people to mass adopt it, you have to be able to process transactions fast, much faster than 10 minutes. So that's where the Lightning Network comes in. It's a layer 2 solution for Bitcoin. And what happens there is you kind of think about if you go to a bar, right? You get you a drink or 3, and you keep putting that on, your tab, right? Like you put it on the tab, right? Each micro transaction you got on your tab. And then what do you do at the end of the night? You got to settle up, you got to close the tab, right? So all them mini transactions, they stay on the Lightning Network. And then when you do the final bill, that transaction gets written to Bitcoin network. So the Lightning Network is coming out to really make it speedy, and you can use Bitcoin faster for ATMs, cards. You can have like a debit card, things like that. So I've got one of those. They're pretty cool. Spend cryptocurrency with just like at Walmart, just like anything else. Cashing in. Everybody says, is it magic internet money? How do I get the money? Like once it's there, if you're providing hardware that's securing these networks and you get rewarded in Bitcoin, well, what do you do with it? Well, there's a lot of things you can do. You could send it to somebody else. Jordan, I could talk him into sending me some maybe. You can also open an exchange account, which is where you sell it, which is what most people do. If you're mining, you got to sell some to pay for your electric costs. $75,000 bill, that's a pretty hefty bill. Coinbase is probably the biggest one in the US, but there's several. Crypto.com. There's a lot of different ones. Binance is another one, but yeah, Coinbase is the one that I prefer. It's just easy to use, but it's kind of like a stock market. You say, I've got this, I want to sell my Bitcoin. Whoever's on the receiving side of that, somebody wanting to buy the Bitcoin, they buy it, and then now I've got cash for it. I can either send that cash to my bank account, or I can just keep it in there, whatever the case is. But just like with banking institutions, the rules and regulations are very tight in the US. They have know your customer rules and anti-money laundering rules. So like, for example, if you open an account, you have to, give them your driver's license, you have to give them your social, all that kind of stuff, so that they know that you're not doing anything nefarious or anything like that. And it's always tied back to your ID. Now, Ethereum, this is pretty cool. So Ethereum is really a neat coin. It's really the second most popular cryptocurrency. And what makes it different than where Bitcoin's kind of like gold, it's like a store of value. Ethereum is actually used for a lot of different things. Decentralized finance, smart contracts. And has anybody heard of NFTs? I mean, a lot of people have, but some people's like, what is an NFT? Like non-fungible token. What the heck is this thing? A token, a fungible, is that a fungus? What is this? Well, it really is a revolutionary way of doing business. And a lot of things are going to move to this model going forward. So smart contracts, for example, if an artist, I give you like the Mona Lisa, for example, if the Mona Lisa was sold, 400 years ago? I don't know, a long time ago. So it's sold originally, it gets sold again, it gets sold again at an auction, gets sold again. Well, the original artist or their family gets nothing from that. They only make money the first time that they paint it and sell it. That's it. Well, blockchain technology is changing that for musicians, artists, all the above, where I can have a smart contract where I design a piece of art, physical art, hang on my wall. I get an electronic copy of that. but it's also, I get a token in my wallet, my Ethereum wallet, that says I own it. It's like a certificate of authenticity that's in my wallet. If I don't have it in my wallet, it's not mine. So it's a way to verify provenance of artists and things like that, their work. The really cool part about it is when you sell that, built into the contract, the original artist gets a cut of every sale in perpetuity from here to infinity, till the world's no longer here or Ethereum's gone, whatever the case is. But, so it's a way for artists to monetize their work as they get more popular. They're not selling their works for $100. Now, if their work sells for $100 million, now they get 10-15% of that in perpetuity, them and any of their whoever they give the rights to after they pass away, their estate. So these tokenized assets, that is technology that's coming. Mortgages are going to be going to that, where and banking is already going there, where mortgage holders have a piece of a smart contract, and every month that the mortgage is paid, the smart contract automatically breaks up the amounts that everybody put in and investors and automatically pays them. So those type of tokenized assets are going to revolutionize banking in the future. And it's already happening. The first mortgage was already minted on a smart contract. So it's coming. Pretty cool stuff. So stable coins are another type of cryptocurrency. They float with the dollar. So one's called Tether, for example. And, a lot of people that invest with cryptocurrency, if you've ever bought any, there's one thing that's always crazy with crypto is it's volatile. It may be 60,000 for Bitcoin, and then it may be, 20,000 and 30,000. You can buy the dips if you want, that's a good strategy. But sometimes people don't like that volatility. So a lot of times miners, we will generate the coin and then we'll keep it in a stable coin so that it floats with the dollars, that I'm not experiencing all that volatility. I've got a little bit of stability there, a certain percentage, things like that. But cryptocurrency mining and some other technologies, it's a way that you can gain passive income by running high-end computing equipment. I build servers myself. Not only do I build cryptocurrency mining software, hardware, but I do software programming on the miners. And we've got a lot of cool projects coming down. I won't say too much yet because it's not quite out, but there's one cool project that I'm working on where we take a Bitcoin container, and then in our area, of course, we have a lot of coal mines, right? And one of the byproducts of mining is that there's methane gas. Okay, and there are companies here that get paid to burn it because it's better for the environment if it's burnt than if they just let it go into the air. So they literally just set it on fire. They watch it and set it on fire. So one of the things that we want to try to do is, take that technology and capture that gas and burn it into a generator and run a container off of it, so that we're using that energy in a renewable manner, because you're using the energy anyway, get some revenue off of it and things like that. So a lot of cool projects coming down. Like I said, I'm a geek. I like all kinds of geeky stuff. What's going on, Wayne? I'm doing great, man. One thing that I'll say, just career wise, whether you're being a leader, whether you're in a leadership position, you don't have to require somebody to ask you to do something. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to take the initiative yourself. And the first step is to invest in yourself. If you don't invest in yourself, you can't invest in others. Okay. You have to invest in yourself to learn skills. Like just this morning, I did 4 hours of research on a project this morning before I came here in my off time, just sipping coffee. It's a great way to wake up on a Saturday, but it's got to be done. There's stuff to be done. You have to invest in yourself, and you have to have a clear vision for yourself. And sometimes that vision is not always there. You have to trust the process sometimes. But when you have a vision and you stick with it and invest in your life and invest in others and invest in your community, you're paid back. One of the best volunteer things I've done is president of Little League. I love Little League. My kids grew up in it, and it took a lot of time, and in fact, probably cost me a lot of money because it took a lot of my attention away from things that I have been making more passive income with. but the rewards of seeing the kids on the field have a great time is way more valuable than Bitcoin. I can tell you that. And, so it was time well spent, but the time that you can put in on your education, your experiences, enriching the people around you, your community, is something that you'll be paid in dividends for. And don't be afraid to research and reach out. If you have questions on whether it be technology, it's got to be a cornerstone of your business if you're trying to start a business. And that's pretty much it. That's my geeky life right now. I'm your friendly neighborhood geek. If you ever need to get a hold of me, it's craig.earls@gmail. Pretty easy. Be happy to answer any questions that you have, or yeah.
I do have a question.
Yep.
Ethereum versus Bitcoin. I know Bitcoin is built on the blockchain. What is Ethereum built on? Do you think that's more sustainable?
It's a good question. It's a difficult question because they're a little bit different. But Bitcoin is really, they're both based on blockchain technology, which is taking those transactions, taking them into a package and writing them as accounting transactions so that they're publicly available. Right now, Ethereum uses proof of work, which is those high-end machines that fight to win the block so that they can get rewarded. But Ethereum is moving away from that because of high energy usage. So they're moving, to other technologies, proof of stake, things like that. But there's a lot of other, there's like 10,000 cryptocurrencies, which is, some of them are useless. Dogecoin for one, but it's, if you invest at the right time, you could, if you invested $2,000, in Shiba Inu like a year and a half, 2 years ago, you'd probably have about $1 million right now. That's how much it's grown. Now, there's not much utility in those coins, but Ethereum's the second, but it all uses blockchain. It's in a lot of ways, Ethereum is more advanced than Bitcoin because of smart contracts and being able to interact with it and stuff like that. One other cool thing about Ethereum, and I don't want to bore everybody with even more technical, things. Yeah, but there's one other piece of Ethereum that's really awesome. That's really going to revolutionize investment, which is decentralized autonomous organizations. To make that in English, it's basically crowdsourced business. So I don't know, Ricky, or Lane, but if we all decide to do a DAO together, I own a third, he owns a third, and he owns a third. I don't know who they are, but we put our money up, and now I get a third of the vote, third of the vote, third of the vote, and we get to decide what we do with our money that we pull together. And as a result, whatever we make and split the amount proportional that I put into the group. So it's a way of crowdsourcing investment funds without having to know the other person, but you still get a vote towards what happens. Like one DAO, for example, was going to buy a copy of the US Constitution, and they raised $40 million as this group, and they were going to use it and take it around and split the proceeds for it. But they lost the bid at $40 million. Somebody else bought it. But yeah, it's a good question. Yeah.
Large facilities like the one you mentioned outside of Austin, do they use like the public power grid, or do they make their own power?
They do use the public power grid, as do I. In Texas, it's a little bit different because Texas is like the energy capital of the world. You get very cheap power out there. ERCOT basically is their authority that runs it. And the problem with power is you can generate power, but if you don't have somewhere to put it, it goes to waste. So like, hydro dams and things like that, they have to spin down their turbines if there's not enough demand on the system. So cryptocurrency mining out in Texas has helped stabilize and you remember, like, I think it was last winter when they had all the issues out there in Texas with the storm where it froze everything and their electric grid was down for like a week. They're using those Bitcoin facilities to help bolster the electrical grid, and actually they power off in times of high demand. So their electric company pays them to turn off their Bitcoin machines, and they pay them in power. So they have agreements like that out there. But yeah, there is a mix of renewables, especially in Texas with hydro, solar, wind, so they have a mix of not just coal and gas fired power plants. It's a good question. Yep.
So the key to a lot of this stuff is, trying to get in early and things like that. You hear that as being like a big barrier before you start doing this type of thing. Given like that like Bitcoin and like proof of work, tokens have, like high energy consumptions, you're seeing like Ethereum move to like proof of stake. Right? So do you see that as like, hey, maybe we should start going over instead of mining to actually like staking? Or do you see like as somebody who's actually mining right now as like an opportunity, hey, maybe this group now they're starting to transition, so that leaves, maybe less competition for my rig to, maybe beat out, maybe there's not as much competition now. Like,
Yeah.
it's an opportunity, or is it something like you're trying to set up?
Yeah, I think it depends, like everything else, but moving, the strength of Bitcoin is its proof of work, the hardware that people buy and secure the network and verify these transactions, across the world. That's the strength of Bitcoin. If the problem with what Ethereum is doing, and this is just my opinion, is proof of stake means you have to run like basically a high-end computer. And most of the time people are going to go to Amazon or they're going to go to Microsoft Cloud. So that doesn't, the strength of Bitcoin is it's decentralized. All these people around the world participate. And if any one of them go down, the network still is up. You look at the social media website Parler, a few years ago, Amazon, it's gone at the snap of a finger. They went and turned their account off. If all the Ethereum, if a lot of these Ethereum servers go onto AWS or the cloud, if Microsoft or Google or whoever says, man, we just don't like Ethereum anymore, turn it off. Would it happen? Don't know, but there is that possibility. So the strength of Bitcoin is its proof of work and those nodes being spread out all throughout the world. So if one goes down, they're still there. Yep. That answer your question? Yeah. That's kind of a long-winded answer, but yeah. But there's a lot of cool cryptocurrencies and a lot of different ones that we mine. We do speculative mining and things like that too, not just with Ethereum or Bitcoin.
What's your take on hardware wallets versus Coinbase?
Yeah, and actually that's a really good point. And there's kind of if you have your own wallet in your pocket, right? If you got money in it, it's your money, right? Well, it's not quite like that in crypto. If you open a Coinbase account, they actually own the coins. They just let you have access to what is yours, if that makes sense. A hardware wallet actually gives you the security phrase to the wallet. Whereas on Coinbase, you don't necessarily get that. You get an account username and password. But if the US government or somebody says, ooh, that guy's not doing something good with that, seize his money. You could seize your money right from Coinbase. If it's sitting on a hardware wallet, they can't seize it because they don't know the crypto keys to open it. So as long as you remember your crypto keys, it's always sitting out there. So yeah, that's a very good question. And what a lot of times, I was meeting with a very wealthy investor, and they had quite a bit of trading because we're just kind of talking about crypto. Yeah. And we were talking about Coinbase, and I said, you keep quite a bit on Coinbase. You realize that, and he was using Coinbase Wallet, which is a different product, but you get your keys. And long story longer, he didn't write down his mnemonic keys to his wallet. So if he had one phone incident, he dropped his phone in the toilet, ran over it, his phone just broke. He had no backup of his wallet with quite a bit of money in it. So that's the moral of the story is, if you do own a crypto wallet, make sure you have your keys available because, stuff happens, some stuff happens to people's phones all the time. So
I would love to start mining, but like when you go in there and you try to research, like, you want something that's going to give you like passive income, but at the same time you read about like the energy rates and things like that. So like,
yeah,
you can't get something so low grade that it doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah,
so what's a good like starting point to just kind of get your foot in the door?
That's a good, it's a good question. If you're just doing home mining, something like that, you could start with a couple graphics cards and mine Ethereum. It just depends on, your investment level and appetite, really. For you try to look, if I'm going to spend 30 grand, versus $1 million, that's quite a bit of difference of, there's the bad thing about these machines is that they produce a lot of heat as well. And you have to mitigate heat, especially at scale. You can run a couple, but if you put that in his bedroom, he's going to be miserable in the summer. Believe me, you're going to be miserable. They get pretty hot. Like a Bitcoin miner can produce heat up about 140, 150 degrees. But we have specialized equipment that separates the hot and the cold so that, it expels the heat, so we've got controls in place for those type of things.
So would you stick with Ethereum as the entry point? Like a good one to learn?
It's the most profitable right now. I mean, like I said, they're getting ready to switch over to proof of stake at some point this year. So that coin's going to be going away for mining. But I mean, right now it's the most profitable. It's a good way to get your feet wet. And there's a lot of, good videos out there and things like that if you're wanting to get started on it. And, it can produce a lot of revenue, a lot. So, not to say that it will tomorrow. There's no promise of tomorrow. But it's a good way to get into it. And, if you're a geek like me, it's a dream come true. So to fool with equipment like this. So, any other questions? Like I said, if any internet questions.
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah, like I said, I appreciate you guys putting this together. I think it's important, and you have to invest in yourself. You have to, and whether it's the research, the time, whatever it takes. I don't ever go into anything half. You got to go all in. It's not worth my time if I don't go all in. And sometimes that's a detriment of, my family life. Sometimes, is he up there in the office again? No. But, you have to invest in yourself, and at times in business, you got to take risks. Sometimes it's go time, and you don't get time back. That's my other advice, is that I wish I would have been doing this as heavily, 10 years ago. I probably would have flew in a jet or something. But, you live and learn, and all of those things work out like they're supposed to, I'm sure. But, risk can be mitigated, and risk can be part of business, not against business. So sometimes it's go time. So not even one question from you. Come on, man. You sure?
I'm good. I'm pretty well versed.
I know you are. I know you are. I thought you'd trying to stump me or something. It happens. Hey, and that's the other thing. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? Till you get into it, that hands-on experience. I mean, I've had near electrical fires. I've had, there's all kinds of cool stuff I've done. Didn't burn anything down, luckily, but sometimes you live and learn those type of technical things too. But if anybody has any questions, follow-up questions later on, if anybody's interested in potentially looking at our data center, just let me know, and I'll be happy to give you a tour.